undefeated Junior, the Juggernaut Taffa! Fighting out of Denver, Colorado, here is Muhammad, the Mother Usman!
So far, but good pressure here from Usman. That's good combination. Level change there from Usman, but he's off the shots.
Get him out of here right now.
We go to the judges' scorecards. We'll see how they have it.
Well, that just reminds me of that fight with Joaquin Silva, where he just flatlined him with...
And that's what Yagos was talking about. Just like that.
Nasty right hook.
Yeah.
That was a check hook on the way in. He waited for Tavares to step in and he checked it with a check hook. Oh!
Huge right hand for Silva.
Heavy shot
win.
landed. If your blades, anything wrong, it'll pop.
He can't.
Oh, he's out on his feet.
That's it.
That's it.
It's the left hand that gets it done again in the first. The record-breaking Russian does it again. Another first-round knockout for Sergey Pavlovich. Unbelievable the power this guy possesses.
Kia ora koutou katoa, no mai hara mai ki UFC on Sky. You have been watching UFC highlights from the weekend where Sergey Pavlovich cemented his spot as a heavyweight title contender. It's the 6th time in a row Sergey Pavlovich has done this. Here is what he had to say post-fight.
I think we all know that the next logical step is the title, but we also know that it's being held up right now. How long are you willing to wait for that title shot?
Отдохну, поем, посплю, еще раз отдохну. Подождем.
I'll rest, I'll eat, I'll sleep, I'll rest some more, I'll wait.
And if that fight happens between Stipe and John, who do you believe will come out on the other side and that you'll be fighting next?
На самом деле, ребята, 50 на 50, кто выиграет. На самом деле, без разницы.
Honestly, it's a 50-50 toss-up, so I don't care.
Before Pavlovich's win caught attention, it was his fight prep on the pokies that had people talking.
Сначала выиграл.
First I won.
Думаю, ну да, еще чуть выиграю.
I'm thinking, all right, maybe I'll win some more.
И потом все проиграл.
And then I lost everything. That's Vegas.
Over the weekend, UFC President Dana White made some exciting announcements, including some of our Kiwi fighters.
What's up, everybody? UFC President Dana White here. And 2023 has started off with a bang. We have already crowned 6 new UFC champions, and that's just in the first 4 months. Told you guys that I would keep updating you when I have new fights and locations. Here is some of the things that I have in store for you. In 2 weeks, we're back in Newark, New Jersey for the first time in 3 years for UFC 288, headlined by Aljamain Sterling and Henry Cejudo for the undisputed UFC Bantamweight Championship. But that's not all. The co-main event will be a 5-round welterweight matchup between number 4 ranked Bilal Muhammad and number 5 Gilbert Burns, who just beat Jorge Masvidal 2 weeks ago in Miami. And what I love about this fight is that they both wanted it to be 5 rounds. 2 of the best guys in the division, and both think they deserve a title shot after this. They wanted 5 rounds, so I gave it to them.
Dana White's announcement spree also included lightweights Oliveira versus Dariush, middleweights Vittori Cannonier, featherweights Emmett versus Topuria, middleweights Strickland Magomedov.
Sorry, guys, we just got another one done last night. I have one more announcement for you. On Saturday, July 8th at UFC 290, we have a middleweight title eliminator. The former champion, Robert Whittaker, whose only losses in the last 9 years are to the champ, Israel Adesanya. He will be taking on Dricus du Plessis. Du Plessis has won 7 straight fights and finished 6 of them. The winner of that fight will fight Adesanya later this year, and that fight is targeted for Sydney, Australia. That's just one fight that's part of what's going to be a huge international fight week. We already made Moreno versus Pantoja for the UFC Flyweight Championship. Plus, we got Robbie Lawler versus Nico Price, Dan Hooker taking on Jalen Turner, UFC 290, July 8th, International Fight Week in Las Vegas.
So, to confirm, New Zealand lightweight Dan Hooker will be facing Jalen Turner at UFC 290. That's International Fight Week, where also Whittaker versus du Plessis in an eliminator title fight to see who will face Israel Adesanya in Sydney. The date and exact location for that fight is yet to be confirmed. But also, we have New Zealand flyweight KaraFrance coming back into action at the UFC Apex on June the 3rd up against Amir Albazi, and New Zealand light heavyweight Carlos Ulberg. He's back in 2 weeks' time against Ihor Patiaia on May 13th. Joining me today in studio, strength and conditioning guru, I call you, Sunz Singh. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I quite like that name. It's fitting.
Look, first of all, I know that you do a lot of work with UFC fighters. You've done work with Sonny Bill Williams, Quay Cooper, and the All Whites, and all these amazing things. But I want to strip it back a bit and talk about your journey and how perhaps you found this passion for strength and conditioning to begin with.
I think it started back, I was born in South Africa, of course, come from a very sporting family. Father was heavy into the sports scene, competed professionally, etc. But we grew up in a community that was, I guess, back in the days during the apartheid and stuff, low socioeconomic groups, etc. But you never really had that help and opportunities. So you'd watch everything on TV and you'd always dream and wonder, but like, man, how cool would it be if I could be there? But I thought as an athlete though first, because I wanted to be an athlete and like get out of that neighborhood, etc. And then I moved to NZ when I was 17, etc. Got injured and whatnot, and I figured, you know what? I was honest with myself. I'm not going to make it anywhere in sport. I was good enough, but not at that level to make it into regards of a pro. So I decided, like, I really love sport. I wanted to do medicine because I was just trying to chase money. But then I was too passionate about sport and went through university, sports science degree and postgrad, and decided, I want to help those individuals, whether it's pro athletes or aspiring athletes, those that are putting their hands up and not really getting seen in the country, because there's a whole carding system and a lot of people are getting missed out. So if I can come in and help as many people as I can, I guess for me, that satisfies me. Like, it's now nothing about money or anything. It's about how many people can I help, because I'm picturing them as little sons going, hey, help me, but everyone turns a blind eye. So yeah, that's where it came about, and sports science caught my eye, and I'm like, okay, so if we can enhance sport in this manner, let me get deeper into it, and yeah, here we are, all these years later.
Yeah, no, you're doing a great job. People can't say enough good things about the work that you're putting out there. But strength and conditioning, the field has come such a long way. And when we look at, our UFC fighters in particular, they have coaches for absolutely everything now. Yeah. And it feels like in a lot of ways that, the team at City Kickboxing are leading the way around the world in terms of those coaches. So how did you find yourself injected into that team?
I think it was, so I opened up a gym on the North Shore. This was 2013, and I just wanted it performance, like sport performance based. I mean, we had normal everyday office people coming in, but the main focus of that gym was performance. And then I knew Israel through a mutual friend. And at the end of 2013, we've met before. We used to watch UFC together. We used to go to a bar on the North Shore, or we'd go to my house or one of our other friends' house, and we'll sit and watch it. And then towards the end of 2013, he texts me and he goes, ooh, I think we can finally work together, because they had someone at CKB that used to help with, I guess, more kettlebell work and stuff. But he knew what I was, and in terms of my academic background. Then I go, okay, cool. He goes, I just need to speak to Eugene. Eugene, like any other coach, needed to know that I'm not just any random pulling out stuff from a hat, that I actually know what I'm talking about or know what I'm doing. And then that got approved, and yeah, so pretty much the end of 2013 leading into 2014, and we just went on this mad run of kickboxing and boxing, even started the MMA scene, and before you know it, into the UFC. And I think one of the special moments with me and Israel was being live at the Anderson Silva fight. We've watched so many fights together off Silva, and his words were, man, mark my word, I'm going to fight him one day. And next thing, we're fighting in Australia against Anderson Silva. So that was like a surreal moment. I still remember in the crowd I was sitting with David Nika, and I'm sitting there and he goes, man, you're so quiet in the fight. But he didn't realize, like me and Izzy used to watch fights together. I was just like, this is actually happening. So for me, that's how it happened. It's just through a text. Israel knew I was in the sports science and sport performance business. And then, yeah, after that, it was history.
And I mean, professionally, that's important, right? I mean, he knows, what you're bringing to the table. Eugene has the buy-in, but Israel Adesanya is one of those people that surrounds himself by those that he trusts. So your relationship with him must have been a bit more than just a professional one.
100%. And I think any athlete I work with, I try and see them as a human being before an athlete. I want them to understand my story. They open up about their story and we're transparent. I feel at the high performance level, you have to be transparent. With transparency comes no doors. And in a high performance setting, any doors will cause a disturbance to performance. So if we can be as transparent as possible, I think the rest is, and he knew it. So Israel, he never had to pay me because he was fighting locally, and money in the combat scene is not great. Everything's self-funded, and people and family and friends help you. So when he came to me and he goes, man, I want to work with you as well, but like I go, Izzy, I don't need money. You know why I'm doing this. And he always said, when I get paid, the family gets paid. So I never chased money. I never wanted it from him. Even when he made it into the UFC, Eugene and Israel was like, man, can you invoice correctly? I feel bad. Because it was more also a friendship, a brotherhood, rather than you just a client, hashtag number 34 on the roster. Nah, it was more a friendship and how much can I help you? Like I said, why I got into this profession is if I can help you, my job's done. So the rest is irrelevant.
Yeah, and for those who may be a little late to the party, Israel Adesanya obviously wasn't in the UFC in 2013, 2014. So here you both were building, along with everything else that he was doing on all these other promotions in places like, in Asia and China and all these other places, to get to that point when he made it into the UFC. How proud were you, not only as, his strength and conditioning coach, but as his friend when he did crack the UFC?
Making it into the world stage out of New Zealand, because we're so tiny and often forgotten about in the rest of the world, for me, that was something because I come from, of course, a community in South Africa where you're generally going to live there, die there, finish. You're not really, you can dream about what you see on TV, but not often many people make it out of there. And similar story, both of us from Africa, we're like, man, I'm like, God, he did it. Holy hecker, he's on the world stage. Like everyone's screaming his name. From NZ, old city kickboxing, the gym's doesn't have all the bells and whistles. If you came to my gym on the North Shore, we had rusty equipment. But if you can't create world champs with rusty equipment, it doesn't mean you have the shiny chrome stuff, you're gonna do it. So for me, I was just really happy because I knew how much he wanted it. And funny enough, like recently, maybe last year, I was with a friend, Franz, who does a lot of our videos, and for Izzy as well. We were at a cafe, and one of the Wetton brothers, from the rugby background, they used to train with me on the North Shore. And he comes to me and he goes, Sunz, in 2014, you told me he's going to be a world champion. And I was like, let's see. Holy heck, he is one of the biggest superstars in the world. I go, yeah, that's part of my job, talent identification. And you could see it. He lived it. He breathed it. Everything he spoke about he was already a champ. It's just a matter of time. And everybody else and social media seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about, the strides that he's made, as an athlete from, where he was to where he is now, he's a shell of the man he once was. Yeah. How do you put a program together for an athlete like that and ensuring, that their skill set, that their strength and everything keeps evolving?
I think the hardest part of me working with Israel at the time was the earliest, before the UFC. Because he's fighting sometimes 16 times a year. Now, if people, I don't know if they're going to understand how that works. You come back from a fight, you've got sometimes, if you're lucky, 3 weeks. What can you do? Not much other than maintain. But what you quickly do is, if someone's so active, I'm like, okay, well, let's look at after 3 fights. That'll span a space of 16 weeks maybe, with how active he was. Let's try and figure out what he feels he needs to work on. And so I generally talk to him and be like, look, what do you feel like is lacking? What do you feel you want to enhance? So I always say, strengthen your strengths and your weaknesses. So don't only focus on the weaknesses, because people then forget what they're good at. So why not, let's make it Super Saiyan. Whatever you're strong at, let's take it even more. So for me, Israel's ability to take on moves, and I've said this many times before, I'd have athletes on the world stage, the Sunny Bills, the Quades, the Boxall brothers from the All Whites and stuff, and athletically, they're very good. A lot of athletes take 2 to 3, 4 times to get something how I want it executed. Israel, I'll be surprised if he doesn't get it like perfect on the second go. The first go is very good. The second go is like, wow, snapshot put in a textbook. His ability to process information and then execute, I think, comes out in his fighting style. If you can't see how intelligent he is and how calculated he is, he listens to words, he takes it in, he acts it out, he self-assesses, does it again. So for me, it wasn't hard, I don't think, in terms of getting him to train. Yes, when I first thought about it, because he's quite a tall guy, long limbs, I'm like, might be a bit tricky, but he's athletic. So it made my job easy and was very easy to train. It's just navigating activity.
Because how important is the mentality side of things? I know that you're dealing with, physical strength, but Israel, as you mentioned, comes with this mega mind brain that is also, one of his core strengths. Yeah. So how important is that aspect when you're dealing with any athlete?
Yeah, for me, I think I call it mental fitness. Mental fitness is everything. It's the brainchild of what's going to happen. So if you can't get your mind on the same page, it's going to be tough. So it's about, for me, I always try and get athletes to do things that will challenge them mentally, in the sense of take them to dark places where they want to quit. So I say, people, go try and run a marathon. It doesn't have to be an actual race. Get some friends on a bike to ride beside you, give you your drinks, etc. But when you do a marathon, you get to that 30K, 35K mark, you question life. You're like, what are you doing? And the moment you finish that distance, everything's irrelevant. Kai done it when he was in lockdown. He had time, I think it was in Vegas, or one of the places. He decided, well, I'm going to do a marathon distance. And he just looped the building. And he feels he can do anything right now, because his mind is at that state now where he's taken it to such a dark place and he's pushed through. So for me, mental fitness is everything. If you can train your mind through dark times and tough times, everything else follows.
Yeah, especially when we think about Israel Adesanya and that loss that he had to Alex Pereira in November in New York last year, where even though it was kind of a dark time for him, he didn't make it feel like it was a dark time for him.
He didn't.
He took that to another place.
Yeah, I think he's at the stage now where he knows, don't ponder. He has to assess and move on. How can I get better? And he's always trying to be better, not for anyone else but himself. So I think he's so finely tuned that his processes are so in check. Like, it's almost like a tick box. Something goes on, his brain goes, it's this, boom, boom, I'll do those steps. He stays aware, and this is me just, I guess, speculating, like, because that's how I operate. If something goes wrong, I've done it before, and I stay aware. I'm very present, and I think he talks a lot about being present. He's very present, so he remembers everything. and he understands how he reacted or how he responded, and he learns from it. So I think he's very fine-tuned.
Yeah.
He's probably like that top 1% in terms of athletes. And I got him and KaraFrance to come into the All Whites. They did the jersey presentation against Australia last September. And the All Whites boys, some of them were just blown away by the insight from him. They took away so much from it that, because with the likes of team sport, you've got so many other players in front of you that's taking your spot. And they took so much away from like, man, if I just keep working when that time comes, and if I really am ready, the rest is history. Izzy stayed working before he was in the UFC. If he didn't, and if he gave up, when that opportunity came, he wouldn't be able to shine the way he did. And now he shines so much, so bright, there's so many shadows being cast. So
it's very well said.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool to know that he's gone into those environments. I know he did a bit with the Silver Ferns not too long ago as well with Mike and Eugene. But I mean, how is important to have those role models? I mean, we talk about how you're working with different athletes in different sports, and you're able to mix those together as well.
Yeah, like I love mixing athletes, mixing codes, mixing cultures and everything, because every opportunity to get to learn, take it. Take it. You never know when you're going to need it. Just take your day, take the information, give the information back, and help. And like I say, I remember putting one of the footballers in with Sonny and Quade Cooper, and he was an all-white at the time. He doesn't play anymore, but he never knew about eating, morning routines. He did whatever. And after that 6 weeks training camp in summer, he goes, man, this changed my life. I know what to do in the morning. I know how to turn up to training. I go, as long as you took one thing, good.
Yeah.
So yeah, happy days.
You've mentioned KaraFrance. He of course has a fight coming up June the 3rd against Amir Albazi. How has he been coming along? And probably the one thing I want to know about him is, what is one thing that has surprised you the most about KaraFrance?
It surprises me, like, I always said KaraFrance is one of my most professional athletes. And by professional, I mean like he does everything to the T. I think even Israel said like Kai is always on point with his recovery, the way he eats, the way he communicates, and lets you know about things. He just turns up better. So this camp, he's turned up and he's already like beyond where I've seen him in terms of physically, mentally. He just pushes through things, and talking about movements, I've introduced so many new movements to the boys in the training group that he just gets on. He's leading the S&C group now. So I have like a whole army of them at once, twice a week, and he's just the leader. The moment Kai is not there, it's like the teacher is not in class. The boys and girls are lost. So I introduced paper. They work out on the page and a pen. They went into this panic mode because they felt like they're in school again. Until Kai turned up, because one day he was a bit tired. I was like, look, Kai, just rest, don't worry about it. So everyone was on a free ride that day, and until Kai came back on Friday, and then boom, he just gets on with it. Work needs to be done, and I guess he leads by action. So it's hard not to match that energy, and you won't be in my training group if you don't have that energy. If you slowing us down, or if you in the walker and you paddling at the wrong stroke rate, I'm gonna kick you out. We can't slow down. So yeah, Kai's looking really good. His head is so switched on. I just love working with him.
You mentioned that strength and conditioning hasn't always been, the thing with mixed martial artists, and you even mentioned that money is an issue, especially on the local scene. So there's not a lot of money throwing around to pay for these coaches either. Yeah. But in your experience, I'm guessing that there was no real blueprint to be approaching strength and conditioning when it comes to mixed martial artists.
And it goes to every sport, even football. So I struggled. Say 2009, I was trying to get football coaches to get the teams to train in the gym. And there's this misconception that you're going to be slow, you're going to get big, it's going to impact performance negatively. And of course, they don't understand it. They're just thinking bodybuilding. As most people think, oh, gym weights, get bulked. That's not it until you approach them and explain, look, this is what I'm trying to do. So I had to push, and then eventually it happened with one football team. They did well. Second football team won the league. The next footballer team won the league. So everyone started winning, and they're like, what is this guy doing? So now most football clubs have an S&C coach. So I'm like, okay, good. And now the combat scene, people were in the gym, they were doing whatever. whatever they saw a pro athlete overseas do with no real guidance until I feel I came along. And I always say this, I think I was the fire starter of S&C in the country, in the sense of proper S&C, well guided, well, I guess, structured. And they saw Israel do really well, and they started seeing videos of him training in the gym. And then, like I said, the old days fighters saw other athletes in the gym. So now people started seeing Israel in the gym. Then they saw Blood Diamond in the gym with us. Then they saw KaraFrance, Jenna Fabian. Everybody started circling through, and they're like, maybe we need to do this. And it started popping up more. When the UFC started hitting mainstream and we're getting more televised stuff and you're getting more videos of people in the gym, it's like, maybe we should be doing this. So now I think most fighters, even just fighting local, all have S&C coaches or S&C program of some sort. So they're slowly investing into it, and I think it's coaches understand. Some coaches still don't like it. It's just trying to get them to understand its importance and how you can regulate it and manipulate it. I think the problem is when they think S&C, they're going to think, oh, he's always going to be lifting heavy, he's going to be too sore for this. Now we can regulate that stuff. And like I said, secondary.
Yeah.
I know my role. I'm not in the front. I'm the guy pulling the strings on the curtain. I don't need to be there.
Yeah, humble man. Look, before I let you go, Sunz, what is on the calendar for you? You have mentioned a few things that are coming up for you, but you are a very busy man.
Yep. Well, of course, I'm looking forward to KaraFrance's fight. I'm excited to see how that fight goes down. Exciting training has been great, so I'm waiting for that. Then I leave, I think, May 10th for the Under-20 Men's World Cup in Argentina. And then middle of June, All Whites assemble in Sweden, so I'll be there. And then, yeah, we just keep going and come back to NZ, and I think we got Olympic qualifiers, which will be in New Zealand for football. So I'll be fairly busy, but I love it. I wouldn't want it any other way because I get bored doing nothing.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and all the best on your travels.
No, thank you for having me.
This weekend, the promotion returns to the UFC Apex for the bantamweights, Song versus Simon, and you can catch all the action on ESPN on Sunday. But also check your guides. UFC 288 goes down next weekend, and Henry Cejudo is back, coming for the bantamweight title when he faces the champ, Aljamain Sterling. Mā te wā.
This is in the blood, I'ma let it